There comes a moment when the mask cracks, when the one who believed they were untouchable stands face to face with the silence they created. You see, the narcissist never believed they could lose you, but when God steps in and removes you, when your soul no longer vibrates at their frequency, their entire false kingdom begins to crumble. This is not just heartbreak for them, it's a spiritual collapse. When God separates you from a narcissist, it rarely feels like deliverance in the beginning. It feels like heartbreak, confusion, and loss. You question everything, your choices, your strength, even your faith. But what you don't realize at first is that the separation is not punishment, it is divine intervention. It's God stepping in and saying, "No more." You see, sometimes God doesn't whisper when it's time to leave. He removes, he redirects, and he reclaims what was his all along, your peace, your purpose, and your soul. The narcissist was never meant to have that kind of power over you, but because of your love, your empathy, and your loyalty, you gave them access to the most sacred parts of you. You poured light into their darkness, believing you could heal what was never yours to heal. And for a time, you may have thought that love would save them. But God knew better. He knew that while you were trying to fix them, they were slowly breaking you. And so, in his mercy, he began to close the door you were too kind to shut. When that divine separation happens, it doesn't look graceful. It often comes through chaos, betrayal, rejection, or abandonment. But these are not signs of defeat. They are signs of release. Because God knows that if you saw the storm he was saving you from, you would thank him for every tear you cried. The narcissist was never your forever, they were your awakening, and when that lesson was complete, heaven intervened. The narcissist sees your departure as loss of control, not loss of love. They don't understand that God was the one who stepped in between you and them. They believe they drove you away, but in truth, you were carried out, protected under grace, lifted out of the reach of their chaos. And while they scramble to fill the void you left, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Your spirit returning to you. That's the moment you start to understand that this was never just emotional detachment. It was a spiritual rescue. Because when God separates you, he's not just pulling you out of a relationship. He's pulling you out of deception, confusion, and emotional bondage. He's teaching you discernment through distance. Every unanswered text, every cold silence, every attempt at manipulation that suddenly feels powerless, that's evidence of divine protection. The bond breaks not because you stopped caring, but because heaven said enough, and as you stand on the other side of that separation, clarity begins to unfold. You realize that the love you tried to give them was never meant for destruction, it was meant to awaken you to your worth. God didn't remove them to hurt you, he removed them to heal you, and one day when you look back on that painful ending, you'll see it for what it truly was, not abandonment but redemption. Because what God separates you from, he was never planning to let destroy you. The narcissist's power has always been an illusion, an elaborate performance crafted to make you believe that they were larger than life, unshakable, and in control. Their charm, their confidence, their carefully constructed image, none of it was real. It was a mask built to hide a deep void within them. They needed your light to reflect their worth, your love to confirm their existence, and your empathy to sustain their illusion of being someone important. You were never just a partner to them. You were their audience, their stage, and their mirror. But when you walk away, when you finally see through the act, the illusion collapses, and so do they. At first, they don't feel the collapse. They believe they can replace you, that their control will continue elsewhere. But what they underestimate is how much of their identity was tied to your reaction. Every argument, every manipulation, every moment they made you question yourself. It was all energy they fed on. You were their emotional currency. The moment you withdraw your attention, their world begins to tremble. They try to provoke you, to pull you back into the drama, to reignite the game, but nothing works, and that's when the cracks in their false kingdom begin to show. The narcissist's illusion depended entirely on you believing in it. Your compassion gave it shape. Your forgiveness gave it longevity. But illusions cannot survive in truth, and your awareness becomes the light that burns their fantasy down. They cannot handle being unseen, they cannot tolerate being irrelevant, because beneath all their arrogance and control lies a soul terrified of invisibility. They crafted a persona to avoid facing the emptiness within, and when you no longer reflect that image back to them, they're forced to meet the one person they've been running from their whole lives themselves. That confrontation is unbearable for them. Without someone to control, they lose purpose. Without someone to impress, they lose identity. Their entire sense of self begins to unravel because their power was never self-sourced, it was borrowed. You were the vessel that carried their illusion, and when you emptied it, they were left with nothing but their own darkness. This is why they panic after you're gone. It's not love they're missing, it's the supply of validation that kept their ego alive. And as their illusion shatters, they start to spiral. They seek new victims, new distractions, new ways to rebuild their collapsing image. But nothing sticks. The charm feels forced, the confidence feels hollow, and the admiration they once commanded begins to fade. People start to see what you saw, the emptiness behind the mask, and that is the true shattering when even the world stops buying the lie. Meanwhile, you begin to heal. You no longer carry their illusion. You carry truth, and while they sink deeper into the collapse of their false self, you rise into authenticity. Their illusion breaks, but your freedom begins, because the moment you stop believing their story, the spell is broken, and the narcissist's entire empire of lies falls with it. When you walk away from a narcissist, you take something far more valuable than your physical presence. You take your energy, your attention, and your emotional oxygen. And for a narcissist, that is a death sentence. They survive on validation like a plant needs sunlight. Without your reactions, your care, your attempts to understand them, their carefully built world begins to fade. What remains is the one thing they've spent their entire lives running from: emptiness, that hollow space where a genuine self should live. At first, they try to fill it with noise, distractions, new people, drama, anything that makes them feel relevant again. They'll jump from person to person, desperate to find another source of emotional supply, but no matter how many replacements they find, no one ever fills the space you did. Because it wasn't just about attention, it was about control. You offered them a depth of understanding that made them feel safe in their own chaos. They didn't love you. They depended on the reflection of themselves they saw through your eyes. When that reflection disappears, so does their sense of identity. The silence you leave behind becomes louder than any argument you ever had. It echoes through their days, reminding them of the one thing they can't manipulate: peace. They try to provoke you to get a reaction, to make you break your silence, but you don't, and that quiet becomes their punishment. The narcissist cannot survive without being the center of someone's emotional orbit. When you detach, you stop orbiting them, and they begin to spiral. This emptiness isn't just loneliness, it's exposure. They start to feel the emotional void they've projected onto others for years. The lies, the cruelty, the manipulation, all of it circles back, forcing them to face the truth they've hidden from themselves. Without you to distract them from their own reflection, their inner world becomes unbearable. It's dark, shallow, and unstable. They realize that every connection they've ever had was transactional. Every relationship was built on what others could give, not on who they truly were. And that realization, though often buried under denial, begins to erode whatever false confidence they once had. Meanwhile, your silence becomes sacred. What once felt like weakness now becomes strength. You stop trying to fix, explain, or justify, and in that stillness you heal. You begin to see that the emptiness they carry was never yours to fill. You were not meant to be their savior. You were meant to be their lesson. The narcissist, stripped of your light, faces a kind of internal winter, cold, isolating, and endless. They may appear to move on, to rebuild, to pretend as if losing you didn't matter, but beneath that performance is a deep, gnawing void they cannot silence. Because the truth is, when you left, you didn't just take your presence. You took away the illusion that they were ever whole. And in that emptiness, their spiritual collapse begins. The spiritual collapse of a narcissist isn't just the unraveling of their relationship, it's the confrontation with divine justice. Every manipulation, every lie, every heart they used and discarded carries an energetic weight, and eventually that weight demands balance. The narcissist believes they can outrun accountability, that charm and deceit can shield them from consequences. But there comes a moment when their actions echo back, amplified by time and truth. That moment is what many call karma, but it's deeper than that. It's the soul's reckoning with everything it has denied. When God allows the narcissist to lose control, he isn't being cruel, he's being just. The narcissist has spent a lifetime trying to play God, deciding who is worthy, who is disposable, who exists only to serve their needs. They manipulate love as if it were a game, unaware that divine order cannot be mocked forever. Every time they humiliated someone, broke a spirit, or twisted the truth for their gain, they planted a seed of destruction in their own path. For a while, those seeds remain hidden beneath success, attention, or admiration, but when you finally walk away, those seeds begin to sprout. The collapse begins not with thunder, but with silence. You see, losing you is not just emotional, it's spiritual loss. You carried light, compassion, and energy that balanced their darkness. When that balance disappears, the narcissist is left alone with the full force of their own shadow. They start to experience the emptiness they once projected onto others. People begin to see through them. Opportunities close, their manipulations no longer yield the same results. What once came easily now falls apart in their hands. It isn't coincidence, it's divine order restoring balance. The karmic reckoning doesn't look like fire and brimstone. It looks like loneliness, confusion, and decline. It's the slow realization that they are no longer in control. The narcissist begins to experience what they've caused in others: betrayal, rejection, invisibility. Those they used for validation begin to drift away, and the admiration they once commanded turns into avoidance. They don't understand that this is not punishment from the outside. It's a reflection of what's within. The chaos they used to project onto others now consumes them. While they spiral, you rise, not because you wished them harm, but because your healing restores divine balance. Your peace becomes evidence that energy always returns to its source. The narcissist's downfall is not your victory. It's their awakening, though most will resist it. But the universe is patient. God doesn't rush the lesson. He allows them to feel everything they once dismissed: the pain of being unseen, the agony of being misunderstood, the fear of being powerless. And in that space of emptiness, they face the truth they've always avoided, that power without love is hollow, and manipulation without empathy leads only to isolation. The karmic reckoning isn't God's wrath, it's his mercy disguised as consequence, because only through collapse can a soul so lost be given the chance to see itself clearly. When you finally begin to heal from the narcissist, something extraordinary happens. Their illusion of control starts to unravel in ways they never expected. The power they once held over you dissolves the moment you choose peace over chaos. Your healing becomes a mirror they cannot escape. They see you rebuilding, glowing, living, and it terrifies them. Because for the first time, you are no longer orbiting their world, they are standing outside of yours, watching you rise without them. For so long, they fed on your reactions, your anger, your confusion, your pain. They thrived on pulling your strings, knowing that as long as you responded, they still had control. But when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop justifying, when you stop caring about their approval, their grip breaks. That silence you now protect so fiercely is their undoing. The energy they once drained from you becomes the very force that propels your growth. And with every boundary you set, you send a clear message: their reign is over. The narcissist doesn't know how to exist without control. So when you begin to heal, they panic. They will try to pull you back, not because they love you, but because your peace exposes their emptiness. Your calm infuriates them. Your joy feels like an insult. They can't stand that you're thriving in the same freedom they tried to convince you didn't exist. You were supposed to stay broken, but you didn't. You were supposed to keep chasing their crumbs, but you stopped. And in that moment, the balance of power shifts entirely. Your rise becomes their reflection, a living reminder of what they lost and what they will never become. While they remain trapped in their endless cycle of manipulation and ego, you are walking in alignment, in truth, in grace. You begin to attract peace instead of pain, authenticity instead of confusion. And the narcissist, who once believed they were the sun in your sky, now finds themselves standing in the cold shadow of their own choices. What they see in you now is something they can't replicate: wholeness. They can imitate success, charm, or confidence, but they can't fake peace. They can't counterfeit the quiet strength of someone who has healed. And the more you grow, the more their false image crumbles. They realize that everything they tried to destroy in you only made you stronger. Everything they mocked, your sensitivity, your empathy, your heart, became your greatest advantage. Your rise isn't about revenge, it's about restoration. It's proof that light always outlasts darkness. The narcissist's collapse deepens not because you punished them, but because your transformation reveals their stagnation. You no longer serve as their mirror, you've become your own source of truth. And as you ascend, they're left behind in the ruins of their illusions, haunted by the reflection of the power they lost when you found yourself. Your healing becomes the one truth they can never rewrite, and that truth is their final undoing. The collapse of a narcissist is never merely personal. It is cosmic, spiritual, and inevitable. When God separates you from their grasp, he does not act out of vengeance. He restores balance. Everything the narcissist once twisted, manipulated, or controlled is brought back into alignment. Divine order does not favor cruelty or chaos. It honors truth, justice, and the natural law that energy cannot be stolen without consequence. The narcissist's downfall, then, is not your doing. It is the universe reclaiming what was misused, exposing what was hidden, and correcting what was distorted. For years, they believed they could bend reality to their will. They thrived on domination, on controlling the narrative, on being the center of attention. They took what wasn't theirs, your love, your patience, your compassion. But divine law has a way of balancing the scales. When you leave, you cease to supply them with the energy they depended on to maintain their illusions. And in that absence, the house of cards they built begins to wobble. No charm, no manipulation, no calculated deception can stabilize a foundation built entirely on borrowed light. As their world begins to crumble, the narcissist experiences something they cannot manufacture: truth. They are confronted with the full weight of their actions, the lies, the betrayals, the exploitation. They are no longer hidden behind charm or intimidation. Those they used to manipulate begin to reclaim themselves, setting boundaries and walking away. Their influence diminishes, their audience disappears, and suddenly they are left with only their reflection, and the reflection is empty. Divine order is not loud or theatrical. It is subtle, relentless, and exact. It does not require vengeance because it operates through natural consequence. This is why the collapse is often so terrifying to them. The narcissist cannot understand why control has evaporated or why admiration no longer fuels them. They were accustomed to being worshipped, validated, and feared. Now they face the stark reality that their power was never real. It depended entirely on the energy they extracted from others. And when that energy is gone, they are left exposed, vulnerable, and powerless. Divine order has restored the balance they sought to avoid, and there is no charm, no manipulation, no rage that can reverse it. Meanwhile, your own life moves forward in harmony with divine timing. Your peace, your joy, your self-possession are not weapons. They are the manifestation of order restored. The narcissist's collapse does not require your interference. Your absence alone completes the work. Every boundary you maintain, every step you take away from their influence, is a testament to the power of alignment. You are living proof that energy flows back to its rightful source and that truth always outlasts deceit. Ultimately, the narcissist's downfall is not punishment, it is revelation. The mask falls, the illusions crumble, and the consequences of a life lived without empathy or integrity become unavoidable. Divine order does not rush, but it never fails. When God separates you from the narcissist, he does more than protect you. He ensures that their collapse is complete, undeniable, and in perfect harmony with justice. And in that unfolding, what once seemed painful becomes a testament to the unshakable power of truth and the unassailable strength of your own spirit.